Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for Scoob. So what Scoob is essentially about is basically we center on, well, Scoob and the Mystery Inc. gang, but they are a little bit older now. They have been, doing they have been solving these mysteries and things like that for a long time now, and it's gotten to a point where they've gotten so good at it that Shaggy and Scooby are starting to feel just a little bit irrelevant, starting to feel like they don't serve as much of a purpose within the group anymore, and basically one day they are basically captured by this spaceship of sorts, which is being led by the Blue Falcon, who Shaggy has looked up to pretty much all of his life, and they are quickly told that they are to go on this mission where they are going to thwart the plans of the very evil Dr. Dick Dastardly, and so basically they have to try to team up, while subsequently the rest of the Mystery Gang tries to help track them down, and that's really all I'm going to say. So Scoob overall, I was very excited for this film. Even before quarantine, this was definitely a film that I thought looked very charming, looked like it was going to be a lot of fun. And look, I haven't seen a lot of Scooby-Doo stuff in a while, but when I was a kid, I was a pretty big fan of it. I remember Scooby-Doo. I used to watch all the like direct-to-DVD movies and things like that. I used to watch, I've seen like the original series and What's New Scooby-Doo. I definitely am a Scooby-Doo fan. I think it's one of those properties that is so timeless. I think it's something that is very easy to I think it's something that is very easy to entertain both kids and adults alike, and I think there is a general, there is just a general admiration when it comes to the Scooby-Doo property. I think most Hanna-Barbera properties are looked at pretty fondly in that way. So hearing that they had a new property coming out, I was very excited, but also knowing that Warner Animation was going to be involved with it. This is a animation company that really hasn't had a single dud for me. I've liked literally everything that they've done so far, so I definitely did not think Scoob was going to be any different. So when I heard it was coming onto VOD, I was a little bit surprised, considering that I really thought this is a film that they would try hard to get into theaters, but considering how well Trolls World Tour did, it's not that much of a surprise, because Trolls World Tour did much better than people expected it to, that it is now coming on VOD, but now it is here, and overall, I'm just gonna say, I don't really get the hate for this movie. I think this is actually a really fun, very different kind of Scooby-Doo movie. Yes, it definitely is not what you're expecting, but I think it's honestly pretty refreshing, and I think it does a good job of, reminding us of what was, but also trying to, implement this new phase of the Scooby-Doo sort of franchise, and I really do like what it is trying to do here. So we're just getting to right now, though, starting off with the voice cast. Which, right off the bat, this seems to be the thing that a lot of people are very heavily divided on, and I will say right now, look, I definitely do feel it's a bit scummy with the way that they handle this voice cast. The fact that they did not clue in any of the original voice actors who have played these characters for years. Well, not original voice actors, but you know what I mean. Like the voice actors that have played them for years, like Matthew Lillard and the chick that plays Daphne. I can understand why there is some uproar there. It's completely understandable. They probably should have handled that a lot better for sure. However, I don't think that takes away from, at least for me, how good this voice cast really is. Starting off with Will Forte, who, yes, definitely, he's not Matthew Lillard, he's not Casey Kasem, but I do think he brings a certain energy, a certain amount of fun to this character, and really finds a way to make it his own. I think he definitely does have the attitude and the, just the very likable factor that Shaggy really does have, but he is trying to bring something a little bit more new to the character, and I think overall he does do a pretty good job with it. I was a fan of Will Forte in this movie. I thought overall he was definitely a lot of fun here for sure. I did like what he brought to the table, as well as the other actors here. I thought Zac Efron as Fred was definitely the strongest out of all of them. I think he did a really good job at playing this character that is the leader of the group, but in this one he's a little bit more cowardly, and I thought that was actually a really fun spin on him. I liked what they ended up doing with him. Amanda Seyfried and Gina Rodriguez, they're both really good here too. I thought that overall they definitely casted some really good actors here. And then Frank Welker as Scooby-Doo is obviously great. He's played this character for years now, and he doesn't miss a beat. Despite the fact that Scooby-Doo talks in this one, which is really the only real thing that divorces this Scooby-Doo from previous previous iterations, he still does do an excellent job here, and I was very impressed by his acting here. As far as everyone else, I was also very impressed by it. Mark Wahlberg as the Blue Falcon is perfectly casted here. This is easily one of his best performances in a long time, mainly because he really goes all in playing this guy that, is seemingly this big hero, but he doesn't really know how to be heroic. He doesn't really understand the way things work because he is the son of the Blue Falcon, and I just thought he was so funny as this character. I would honestly be down to see a spin-off of the Blue Falcon. I would totally be down for that because I think they really showed a lot of potential in this character, and I really did like what he ended up doing here. And Jason Isaacs as Dick Dastardly as well was also, I think, perfectly casted here. He, out of everyone, I think seemed like he was having the most fun. He was just absolutely hysterical in this role. I loved what he ended up doing here. The way that he just goes about certain plans here, but also the way that he, just really went into the menace of this character is definitely a lot of fun to watch. I didn't watch Wacky Racers a lot as a kid, but of what I've seen, I think he definitely did understand the character for sure, so I like what he ended up doing here. Kiersey Clemons I thought was really good. One of the best roles in a while for Ken Yeon. I thought he actually was really funny here. I was very surprised with how much I enjoyed him. Tracy Morgan's really good here. Really, this entire voice cast, I don't really have too many complaints with. I know a lot of people want to pick apart how, oh, these guys should not be playing these roles because these actors have played them for years. And again, I don't think it was right the way they handled that either, but I'm totally open for other iterations of these characters. I'm totally open for other voice actors playing them. So I really don't have a problem with really any of the voice acting here. I think everyone did a pretty good job here. But now we're going to get to the directing and the writing, which again, this is another thing that seems to be dividing a lot of people, and I don't really understand why, especially when it comes to the director. I mean, I think when you watch this movie, I don't really understand how you can say that Tony Cervone does not understand the Scooby-Doo property because he has literally done Scooby-Doo films before. He's done a bunch of the direct-to-video films, from what I understand, and, he's no stranger to this franchise, so I don't really understand why people are getting on him. I thought he did a really good job directing this movie. He clearly does have a lot of respect for Scooby-Doo. He totally understands what works in Scooby-Doo, but he also isn't afraid to bring something different, because I will say right off the bat, for those who haven't seen this, which I feel like most people that have seen Scoob at this point have seen it, but in case you don't, this is not really a mystery film. The mystery is there, but it's very much to the side. This is trying to be way more of like an action movie or a superhero film, and I personally found that to be very refreshing. I don't really have a problem with them doing that at all, and I thought that that actually did work nicely into this film. I thought that that tone actually worked with what they were trying to do here. I really didn't have much of a problem with it, and the humor as well I thought was definitely very well done. The film is very self-aware, and there's a lot of really great in-jokes and things like that, and if you're a fan of certain Hanna-Barbera characters, I think the humor is definitely going to appeal to you for sure, so I really don't have any problem with that either, and I thought overall his directing was definitely really good here. I definitely felt like he knew what he was doing, and I was impressed by his directing here for sure. And the writing in this film, I will say, yes, the writing is not perfect, but I think overall this story definitely does work. I like this idea that Scooby and Shaggy throughout this film feel like they've kind of lost their purpose. Every other member of the Mystery Inc., they have their own sort of, thing that they do. Fred's the leader, Daphne's the one who is very intelligent and is solving the crimes, and, Velma's someone who is assisting them as well, and it seems like they know what they're doing for the most part. They don't really need Scooby and Shaggy, and so I think that that was the right focus for this film, is to focus on just how irrelevant these two characters have really become. I think that is actually a really interesting story, and seeing them assisting the Blue Falcon and kind of finding a new purpose of sorts, I think actually really did work, because it kind of pulls the audience in to say like, hey, this is just as refreshing for Scooby and Shaggy as it is for the audience, and I thought that definitely did work very well, and I thought the way they incorporated those characters, it didn't feel jarring to me. It actually, for the most part, I think did work in this movie. Seeing characters like Blue Falcon and Dick Dastardly, how they fit into the Scooby-Doo world, I think actually does work quite well, especially when it comes to Blue Falcon, who I just think fits right into this because he actually does have a lot of similarities to Shaggy in that way. He's someone that he definitely can be he definitely can be heroic, and he definitely does have some really admirable skills, but he also isn't the brightest at points, and there's a lot of things that he just doesn't really know how to do. He's kind of a buffoon in this movie, and I like that he's in this situation where, like, Kiersey Clemons' character and Ken Yeon, they have to kind of assist him and help him out because they understand how this stuff works. You know, they have to show him the ropes a little bit, and I thought that was a really fun idea for this character, and again, I like the way that he blended into this world overall, and I liked what they ended up doing there. So I thought that definitely did work for me. I really don't have any complaints on that front at all, and they do a lot of fun stuff with the Blue Falcon character, but also how Scooby really starts to find himself getting pulled into this world. There's a reason why Dick Dastardly is so adamant about tracking down Scooby. He doesn't care as much about Shaggy, but he needs Scooby, and there is a legitimate reason behind that, and I actually found that to be a really interesting idea, why he actually needs Scooby, and getting more into the backstory of Dick Dastardly. There's a reason for why he's doing what he's doing. I thought actually did work quite well. So I really didn't have too much of a complaint with the story at all in this movie. I think that was definitely very well done. And like I said, the humor in this film mostly worked for me. A lot of the things that people are complaining about, you know, such as the modern jokes and pop culture references, it didn't really bother me all that much. I actually thought a lot of them hit pretty well. There was a really funny joke about, you know, different Chris Hemsworth and Liam Hemsworth. I thought there was a funny joke in there about that. I enjoyed what they were trying to do, where it does feel a little bit more modern. It does feel a little bit more in touch, but I never really felt like it was beating you over the head with it. Yes, once in a while there might have been some jokes that did that, but I thought overall the jokes mostly landed for me, and I thought there was some really fun stuff that they did there. And the other thing I really do love about this movie that I don't think anyone can really disagree with is that I think it really understands just how important the Scooby and Shaggy relationship really is. These two really do go hand in hand together. You can't really have one without the other, and I think this film really does understand that. There's a really good scene in the third act of this movie where, you know, you really do feel for these two. You feel that friendship that they have. You understand the significance of it, and I think the film definitely did do a really good job of diving into that for sure, and I think that's something that I definitely will give this film, is that it definitely does have that heart. It understands the respect that these characters really do need, and I thought overall that was something that this film just did a very good job with overall. So again, I think the film definitely does respect the property. I don't think there's any question about that whatsoever, at least on my end, but I also think it's clearly trying to do something a little different, and I don't really have a problem with that at all. I think what it's trying to do, you know, the new opening up this Hanna-Barbera cinematic universe of sorts, I think is an interesting idea because it finds a way to keep these characters and properties alive that people have respected for so many years, and I don't really see any harm in that at all. So I don't really have a problem with what they did there at all when it comes to the writing. I think it definitely is pretty well done. There are a couple things though, writing wise, that didn't work quite as well for me. I will say the only instance that I did feel that they were starting to get a little too over, you know, they were starting to become a little bit, it was starting to feel too much like a setup movie at points, is what they decided to do with the character of Captain Caveman. His whole inclusion in the movie honestly felt like it could have been a deleted scene. I felt like it felt like a complete diversion from what was going on. I like Tracy Morgan as this character, but I just didn't really feel like he necessarily had a place in this movie. I feel like you could cut him out of it and it would actually make a lot more sense. And I feel like the film would pretty much be the same without him there. So I don't really have, so I did feel that that definitely did not work quite as well. The one issue that people may take with this film, and one that I can understand, is that because Scooby and Shaggy are very much the focus of this movie, Daphne, Velma, and Fred definitely do take a bit of a back seat. They have a bit more of a subplot going on. And I thought Fred, as a character, they did a lot of fun stuff with. In fact, any time I laughed in this movie, the funniest jokes if they weren't from Blue Falcon or Dick Dastardly, they were mostly coming from Fred. He had some really hilarious one-liners in this movie. Like I said, Zac Efron really just digs into the fun of this character. I like that he's this leader, but he also, like I said, is a bit more cowardly in that way. I thought that really worked for his character in this movie. I thought it was honestly pretty funny what they did there. As far as Daphne and Velma go, though, there really isn't that much for them to do. They definitely are involved in what's going on, but they don't really have their own storyline here. And I did feel that they maybe could have done a little bit more with their characters. It does kind of feel at points like they are wasting Gina Rodriguez and Amanda Seyfried. I enjoyed them in the roles a lot. I thought they both did a really good job, but I did feel at points that it did feel they were a little bit underused in that way, and so I can understand people take issue with that. And then I'd say my only other real flaw in terms of writing, and it is actually my biggest flaw with the movie, is that I did feel the first 20 minutes of this film were actually pretty rushed. They do a good job of introducing how Scooby and Shaggy have met, and then how the mystery gang has ended up meeting, but it felt like once they all met up, they really tried to skip ahead. They really did everything they could to just really get you into the thick of things, and I feel like they really could have spent a bit more time on maybe the gang solving a mystery and Scooby and Shaggy not feeling like they have as much of a purpose, kind of showing them in their glory days and then cutting them to now. I think they could have done a little bit more there, because while I understood that story, I did feel that the story was a little bit underwritten in that way, and so I think that would have made the story just a little bit better overall, and I would have probably enjoyed the film more if they would have done that. But in terms of the writing overall, I don't really have too many complaints on that front. The animation here is also absolutely gorgeous. I mean, just the animation on these characters, it looks great. Every Warner animation film pretty much does, but just the detail of the world, especially what they do when they're in space, I thought was really well done. There's a lot of really fun action scenes in this movie as well, and I just thought this was a very colorful film. I really did like the animation here quite a bit. In terms of the score as well, I thought the score was definitely a lot of fun in this movie, and the editing, like I said, I do think this film definitely is a little bit too short. I think there are some things that the film really could have honed a bit more on, and I think that would have made the film just a bit better in retrospect. But overall, I really can't complain too much. I think there's a lot that Scoob does do right. It does a good job, I think, of paying respect to the original, but also trying to do its own thing, trying to be more of a superhero film, trying to set up more of a Hanna-Barbera cinematic universe. It has some really fun new characters in terms of Dick Dastardly and the Blue Falcon, what they do with them. I definitely did enjoy quite a bit. The voice cast, I definitely did enjoy. It's very funny. It has some really fun references in there that if you are a fan of Hanna-Barbera, I think you'll definitely get a real kick out of. And overall, I just think this is a really fun movie. Look, we're in a time where there are not that many films coming out for families that I really think are all that worth watching. Trolls World Tour, The Willoughbys aren't really that great, but this is that one film that I do think both kids and parents are going to enjoy. I think they both are going to get something out of this, because again, it's not just trying to pander to kids. I think there definitely is stuff in there for both ages, and I think that's definitely really great to see for sure. It's got a real beating heart to it as well for Scooby and Shaggy's friendship. The way it really tries to dive into that, I thought was definitely really well done. And overall, I just think this is a really great time for sure. So I am going to give Scoob overall a B. But over, guys, in my review of Scoob, let me know what you guys saw this movie. Left your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.
Moving on.